it's very difficult to follow this very sobering description of nuclear war. But remember, my dear friends, that this is what Israel is planning for Iran. Just a note. Now, I want to say that I'm very honored um, your invitation to this meeting because I follow Scott and Larry for more than a year now, like many of us. I'm very honored to speak with three exemplary and admirable Americans because I'm going to say a few things about the empire myself, and I'm very glad that I'm speaking with Americans who are just as critical. I want to first say that we should be very wary about personalizing politics. And it's almost impossible not to do it with people like Netanyahu and Trump around. I understand that. And it's very important to understand them. But behind those people, there are states and there is a history that they are working in the context of. So whatever we might think about Netanyahu, and there is not much that we can say to defend Netanyahu. I definitely can't and won't. But Netanyahu, if he indeed is gone, and I hope so, very soon, will not bring a radical change in the policy of Israel. The reason is that, like in the United States, Israel has a deep state, and it's called Zionism. And Zionism is, 100-year-old or more than 100-year-old, 120-something-year-old movement. And its history has inscribed on the body of Palestine a terrifying narrative. And I think that's what we need to think of. As a historian, I don't think that I want to just concentrate on people like Netanyahu. I want to concentrate on the history and the direction that it has shown until now. First to say about the people that might replace Netanyahu, they are not better than him. Some of them are calling themselves left. There is a general called Yair Golan who is leading the so-called left that probably will have one or two at most parliamentary representatives, maybe none. And he criticized, about 2 months ago, he criticized Netanyahu for not attacking Iran. So if you think that Netanyahu is the worst you can have, well, no, it's not. Because Zionism has produced a population in Israel that supported the war in Gaza by 97%, according to Tel Aviv University poll of about a year ago. And the percentage has not gone down significantly. Now, it is true that now about 2/3 of the Israelis are sick and tired of the war in Gaza and they want it finished. But they have just supported it by a larger majority a year ago. Why are they so changeable? Why did they change their mind? Well, they're not winning, as Scott said. They are actually losing not just the wars, but they're losing billions of people around the world that now learned what Zionism is and what it can do. The other thing I want to say in terms of terminology is that the genocide did not start on October the 8th in 2023. It probably can be counted as starting in November 1947, when the UN decided to divide Palestine into a Jewish state and an Arab state. And a day after the UN voted on the 29th of November, uh, the Zionists started the war against the Palestinians. And that was a genocidal war. Between that genocidal war and the one that is still going on, despite negotiations and agreements and so on, um, more than 250,000 Palestinians, and according to some experts, much more, have been killed already. So as the different UN courts dealt with genocides, and the US itself has already recognized 10 genocides until last week, 10 genocides. Some of them only had 9,000 people killed, by the way. The Israelis have killed in 80 years or so, almost 80 years, more than 250,000. So this is a genocide which is a continuous one. Sometimes it flares up, like in 2008-9, when a few thousand people were killed. Then in 2012, then in 2014, then in 2019, and then in 2021, and then in October 2023. So there are flare-ups, which are thousands of people being killed, and now, of course, it's much more than that. But it doesn't stop. So I think we need to think about Zionism rather than about Netanyahu. That's the first point. And while I mention the discussion about genocide and what is and or isn't genocide according to some countries and some experts, I want to make a very simple point, but it's important. The first person to call this a genocide this time round was a Jewish Israeli professor, Raz Siegel, who already 3 days after this started, on the 12th of October, published an article in actually a Jewish journal where he called the Gaza a textbook case of genocide. That was the name of the article. And within a month, 100 experts, most of them Jewish Israelis, including myself, have signed a letter saying that this is a genocide and that's how we should treat it. And many people then joined those first 100, and they include people that you may know the names of, like Professor Omer Bartov, Professor Ilan Pape, Professor Daniel Blattman, Professor Amos Goldberg, Professor Yosef Loshitsky, Professor Lee Mordechai, Professor Avi Schleim, Professor Ronit Lentin, and I won't go into all the names. So actually, the first group of people who called this terrible crime a genocide, identified it, and opposed and condemned it were Jewish Israelis. I'm very happy that this is the case, because it means that there is some hope for Jewish Israelis after Zionism. But these august professors, most of them are friends, are not typical of the Israeli public, as I just explained. Today, by the way, we heard that Professor Omar Shatz, another Israeli opponent of the genocide, has submitted to the ICC 170 pages that he and his many students in a Paris university worked on for a whole year against 8 Israeli leaders as genociders. They are asking the ICC to issue arrest warrants for 8 of the Israeli leadership. Of course, they include the president, the prime minister, different ministers, and so on, many of the cabinet, but they chose 8 because even with those 8, the file was really huge. They worked on it for a whole year. So again, we see that Israeli Jews who are opposed to Zionism and are opposed to genocide are very important in pointing out the crimes. I now want to talk about the ceasefire that we supposedly had since Wednesday. Of course, since Wednesday, about 127 people, I don't know the exact number for this moment, but this was true this morning, were already killed in Gaza and will continue to die until Israel deigns to start the genocide. If what it did in Lebanon is an example of anything, immediately after the ceasefire was signed with Lebanon, with Hezbollah in Lebanon, they started bombing and they have never stopped. So Israel will sign ceasefire agreement, but immediately may break them. They are already discussing, while we have our meetings, there is a meeting of the cabinet in Jerusalem, and they're already discussing when to break and they admit it, when to break the current agreement so that the war will continue. And Netanyahu, a morning after signing this, already said, we're not going to do it. We're not going to honor it. He didn't use those words. He said, we will continue the war. So this is the kind of thing that we are expecting. Unfortunately, a ceasefire is just that. It's just a delay in the genocide. And I was, from the beginning, totally opposed to the demand of millions of people marching in different countries, shouting ceasefire now. Because what does it mean? It doesn't mean the end of the genocide. It doesn't mean the end of Zionism. It doesn't mean the end of the occupation. It just means let's have a 5-minute out, like in a football game. And I'm opposed to having short-term slogans because they mean nothing. And now we see the danger of such slogans. Now, like Scott and the others, I want to say that, yes, those 8 people that Professor Schatz is now accusing of leading the genocide should be in the ICC as soon as possible. Do I hold my breath for them being there? No. I don't think that an Israeli, an American, a Brit, or any other major Western powers are likely to find themselves in the ICC. However, we have to work as if there is international law, because without that pretense, even hope is a pretense. So I want to then offer you another perspective. The people that should be in the dock are in the hundreds. It's not 8 people that should be in the dock there. I'm not saying in the thousands, I'm saying in the hundreds, because I'm counting the leadership of Western nations that supported the genocide. The prize goes to the US. So Joe Genocide should be there. Blinken should be there. Austin should be there. All those people who are the architects and the feeders and the abettors of genocide should be in the dock with those 8 Israelis. And it doesn't end there. The person who wants to replace Justin Trudeau in Canada, someone called Jacobi, who I didn't hear before last month, talked about the genocide against Israelis and said that Canada will continue in the supporting of Israel and will not arrest any Israeli that comes to Canada. So he can join them there. The French leadership can join them there, but probably more appropriate and more important, number two supplier of arms to Israel and finance to Israel is Germany. Now, the behavior of Germany is actually leaving every other one behind because they are under the description of supporting Jews after the Holocaust. They support the killing by the Jewish state of more than 100,000 Palestinians. I don't accept the figures that are put out officially, and many others do not, because we all know that tens of thousands of people are buried under the rubble, and many other tens of thousands are dying and died from disease, from starvation, from the lack of water, from all the infrastructure that was destroyed. They are under the rubble or they are buried in shallow graves by people that cannot take their body to a hospital because there is no more hospitals to take it to. Now, not only that, the West has supported this genocide. This is a Western genocide done by Israel. Israel is carrying it out for its own simple reasons of clearing Palestine of its of its indigenous population, so that it can have the whole of Palestine with Jews colonizing it. And the U.S., a number of senators in the U.S. suggested that if the ICC has the cheek to put Israel in the dock for genocide, the U.S. should bomb Holland and destroy the court and also Hague. Another suggestion was that U.S. commando should be let down over the court, grab the judges, and bring them to Guantanamo. So there are very many interesting examples of how the U.S. is planning to actually amplify the crimes of Israel. Now, I don't think this is going to happen because the ICC is not going to be allowed to bring any Western government, including Israel, into the court. But we shall see. We should actually condemn everything that Western countries have done. And I'm living in London, so I'm mindful that Keir Starmer, the new Labour Prime Minister, for the whole period that he was in office, but also before he was in office, supported starvation, supported cutting water and fuel, supported the genocide in all its aspects, and also continued to supply arms, cutting some 8% of the arms that the UK supplied, so that he could say, I did something, but they did nothing. And together with Germany, the UK is now a place where Palestinians, other Arabs, and especially Jews and Israelis who support Palestine and say so, find themselves in jail. I did myself about 2 months ago. Now, Poland, which I didn't mention until now, has invited Netanyahu, a genocider, that both ICC and ICJ have claimed should be in jail. They want him under arrest warrant. They invited him to Poland in order to make the point that they are not going to follow the ICC arrest warrants. And what is he going to do in Poland? He's invited to on the 27th of January to be the honorable guest in Auschwitz at the commemoration of a Jewish genocide in 1940 to 1945, the genocide of the European Jewry done by Germans. And now they invite a genocider, in this case, a Jewish genocider, to commemorate the Shoah while he is actually conducting a genocide of his own. So I want to finish by saying two things which are, I think, important to mention here. The first is there will be no peace, no growth, no proper development, not just in Gaza, but anywhere in the Middle East, until Zionism is brought to an end. Now, Zionism was the last settler colonial project developed, and I hope it is the last, because I can't see that colonialism is going to produce another bastard like Zionism. And what this means is that it is now involved in a whole number of countries in the Middle East. As you well know, it bombed in Syria and took more territory in Syria, and it does so every week. It is involved in Lebanon, and actually a whole range of parties were already setting up groups to go and build settlements in Lebanon. And the right wing is actually arguing in Israel not for a country, an Israel from the river to the sea, which is the call of the Netanyahu government and the Netanyahu Likud party, but from the Euphrates to the Nile. This is their call to people to, and of course, while Gaza was being destroyed, while tens of thousands of children and babies were killed, and tens of thousands of others, they prepared the first few occupations by settlers. This didn't happen, fortunately, but this is not off the agenda. And they're involved in Yemen, they're involved in Iraq, and they want to be involved also in bombing Iran into submission. And of course, they can't do this without America. And I wouldn't sign that Trump won't do it. No, I think when you were talking about the last point I want to make in a minute is that life cannot continue in Gaza as it is, and we have to move against Israel as a force of destroying the Middle East. In 1973, South Africa was removed from the General Assembly of the UN for the crime of apartheid, which was like a joke compared to what Israel is doing now. Let us arrange for the General Assembly that created the crisis in Palestine in 1947 to eject Israel out of the UN. Israel is ejected itself out of human society by doing this genocide. We now need to formulate it, to make it permanent, that Zionism is not a proper member of human society or of the UN. Thank you very much.